The great hall of the Galactic Council gleamed with light. Beings from 100 worlds sat in curved rows. They were scared, all of them. High Chancellor Toll raised his four thin arms, calling for quiet. His pale blue skin looked even more washed out than usual under the bright lights. "The reports are true," he said. His voice was soft, but carried to every corner of the hall. "The entity we call the Hunger has consumed the Neri system, all 6 planets. The star itself, gone." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some council members wept. Others argued with their neighbors. Silence. Toll's voice cracked. "We must remain calm. Our best scientists are working on a solution." In the back of the hall, Kim Sumai, Earth's ambassador to the council, watched with worried eyes. She was new to her position. Humans had only joined the council 5 years ago. Many still viewed them as dangerous primitives from a harsh planet. Ambassador Kim, a tall, thin alien with golden scales, nodded to her. "Your kind must be used to such threats." Sumai forced a smile. "No one is used to something that eats stars." Counselor Vex. She left the hall as soon as she could. The council would talk for hours and do nothing. She needed to call home. Park Jin-ho stared at his screens, rubbing his tired eyes. For 3 weeks, he had barely slept. The data from the fallen Neri system kept him awake. The Korean Space Initiative outpost was small but well-equipped. Jin-ho had the best tools to track the Hunger's movements. What he saw worried him deeply. "You need to sleep," said Dr. Yun, the station's medical officer. She placed a cup of hot tea on his desk. "There's no time," Jin-ho said. "Look at this pattern. The Hunger isn't moving randomly. It's following something." "Following what?" "I don't know yet, but it's choosing targets. Planning." He pointed to a map of the galaxy. "See these star systems? They all have something in common." Yun leaned closer. "What?" "They're all rich in certain elements, specific energy signatures." Jin-ho typed quickly. "The council thinks the Hunger is mindless. It's not. It's hunting." A message alert flashed on his screen. Ambassador Kim was calling from the council homeworld. "Ambassador," Jin-ho said when her face appeared on screen. "I was about to contact you." "The council is panicking," Sumai said. "They've lost another system. Maris 9. Jin-ho nodded. "That fits the pattern. Maris 9 was rich in plasma energy." "Pattern? What pattern?" "The Hunger is targeting specific systems with high energy outputs of certain types." Jin-ho sent her his data. "It's not random destruction. It's feeding on certain energy signatures." Sumai studied the information, her brow furrowed. "The council needs to see this. They won't listen to me. I've sent 3 reports already." "They'll listen to me," she said firmly. "I'll make them listen." The emergency council meeting was even more crowded than the last. News of Maris 9's destruction had spread fear throughout the galaxy. Sumai stood at the speaker's platform, waiting for her turn. The council's chief scientist, a blob-like being named Dr. was finishing his report. "We have deployed our most powerful energy shields around key systems," Dr. said. "Our weapons platforms are ready to fire on the Hunger when it next appears." "That won't work," Sumai said loudly. All eyes turned to her. Chancellor Toll frowned. "Ambassador Kim, you have not been recognized to speak." "With respect, Chancellor, we don't have time for protocol." Sumai stepped forward. "Your energy shields and weapons will only make the Hunger stronger." Angry voices rose from the council members. "How dare you? What does a primitive know of our technology? Deathworlders should know their place." Chancellor Toll raised his arms again. "Order. Ambassador Kim, explain yourself." Sumai took a deep breath. "One of our scientists, Park Jin-ho, has been studying the Hunger's movements. It's not attacking randomly. It's seeking out specific energy types, the same types your shields and weapons use." She displayed Jin-ho's data on the main screen. "The Hunger grows stronger after each attack. Your weapons are feeding it. Dr. Un's body rippled with anger. This is absurd. You expect us to believe a human scientist discovered what our experts missed. Maybe you missed it because you weren't looking for it. Sumai said. Humans are used to looking for threats in unusual places. Our world taught us that. Chancellor Toll studied the data. These patterns, they could be coincidence. 6 destroyed systems showing the same pattern is not coincidence, Sumai insisted. And look at the projected path. The hunger is heading toward Callus Prime next. The hall erupted in panic. Callus Prime was one of the most populated systems in the galaxy. Impossible, Dr. shouted. Callus Prime is protected by our strongest shields, which will make it even more attractive to the hunger, Sumai said. Chancellor Toll raised all 4 arms, calling for silence. We cannot ignore this possibility. Dr. Analyze this data immediately, if there's even a chance the human is right. Chancellor. A messenger burst into the hall. We've lost contact with the outer colonies of Callus Prime. Silence fell over the room. Sumai's heart sank. It's already begun, she said softly. Jinho was still at his console when alarms blared throughout the station. What's happening? He asked as Yun rushed into the room. The hunger has reached Callus Prime, she said. The council is ordering immediate evacuation of all nearby systems. Jinho checked his data. It's moving faster than before. Much faster. His console beeped. Ambassador Kim was calling again. Her face looked drawn and tired when she appeared on screen. Jinho, the council is in chaos. Callus Prime's defenses failed completely. The hunger. It absorbed the energy shields and grew larger, just like you predicted. How many people were lost? Millions, maybe billions. They're still counting. Sumai rubbed her temples. The council is finally listening, but they have no ideas, no plans. Jinho stared at his data. I've been thinking about something. Earth is different from most council worlds. We evolved on what they call a death world. High gravity, radiation, extreme weather, dangerous life forms. What's your point? The hunger avoids certain elements, materials common on Earth but rare elsewhere in the galaxy, materials that form through billions of years of extreme geological activity. Sumai's eyes widened. You think Earth materials might be a defense, or even a weapon? We need to test it. Jinho pulled up new data. There's a small moon in the Taurus system. It has similar composition to parts of Earth's crust. The hunger passed right by it, even though it consumed everything else in that system. I'll take this to the council immediately. Sumai looked determined. But I need more. I need a plan. I'm working on one, Jinho said. But I'll need help. And resources. You'll have them. Sumai promised. I'll make sure of it. 3 days later, Jinho arrived on the council homeworld. Sumai met him at the spaceport. It's worse, she said as they hurried toward the council chambers. 3 more systems lost. The evacuation routes are clogged with refugees. Did you tell them about my theory? Yes, they were skeptical at first, but after more systems fell, they're desperate enough to try anything. The council chamber was barely half full. Many members had fled to their homeworlds. Chancellor Toole looked defeated. His blue skin had turned almost gray with stress. Dr. Park, he said, Ambassador Kim says you have a theory about the hunger. Jinho stepped forward. Yes, Chancellor. I believe the hunger avoids certain materials found on Earth. If we can confirm this, we might be able to create barriers or even weapons against it. Your world, Dr. said with obvious distaste, is considered a death world by our standards. Toxic, dangerous, violent. Yes, Jinho agreed. And those conditions created materials that might save us all. The chamber's main screen lit up with an emergency signal. A council member rushed to Chancellor Toll's side, whispering urgently. Toll's face fell. The hunger has changed course, he announced. It's heading directly for this system. Panic erupted in the chamber. Jin-Ho looked at Su-Mei. How long do we have? 2 days, maybe less. Jin-Ho took a deep breath. Then we need to move fast. I need ships, resources, and brave people willing to test my theory. Who would volunteer for such a mission? Dr. Un demanded. Jin-Ho stood tall. I will. And I know other humans who will too. On Earth, we face danger every day. It's in our blood. Chancellor Toole looked at the human scientist with new respect. Very well, Dr. Park. You have the Council's full support. Whatever you need. As they left the chamber, Su-Mei touched Jin-Ho's arm. You know this is a long shot, right? Jin-Ho nodded. Of course, but long shots are what humans do best. Outside, the sky was beautiful and clear. No one looking up would guess that darkness was coming, that a hunger that could not be satisfied was approaching. But the humans knew, and they would be ready. The emergency shuttle bay was filled with activity. Humans and aliens worked side by side, loading equipment onto ships. Time was running out. The hunger would reach the Council homeworld in less than a day. Lee Ta-won watched it all with a critical eye. The former Korean Special Forces commander now led Earth's Unified Defense Initiative. When Ambassador Kim had called for volunteers, he was the first to respond. Will these ships be fast enough? He asked Jin-Ho, who was checking a list on his tablet. They'll have to be, Jin-Ho replied. We need to set up the test barriers before the hunger arrives. Tai-won nodded. He was a man of few words but decisive action. Earth had sent their best. Soldiers, scientists, and engineers used to working in extreme conditions. A small alien with green skin approached them nervously. Dr. Park, I am Assistant Science Director Pim. Chancellor Toole asked me to help coordinate your experiment. Jin-Ho smiled. Thank you, Director Pim. We need all the help we can get. I must admit, Pim said, looking around at the busy humans, I did not expect your kind to volunteer so readily for such a dangerous mission. Tai-won shrugged. On Earth, danger is normal. We live with it every day. Pim seemed uncomfortable with this answer. The Council's military advisor, General Xer, wishes to speak with you. He's not pleased with your approach. I bet he isn't, Jin-Ho muttered. General Xer was tall, with gleaming red armor and 4 eyes that glared at the humans with obvious disdain. He stood in the command center, surrounded by Council military officers. Kinetic weapons, he said when Jin-Ho explained their plan. Physical barriers. This is your great solution. Primitive technology that we abandoned thousands of years ago. Yes, Jin-Ho said simply. The hunger absorbs energy weapons and shields. It grows stronger from them. But it can't absorb physical matter as easily, especially certain Earth elements. This is absurd, Xer snapped. You expect us to abandon our advanced technology and rely on rocks. Tai-won stepped forward. Not just rocks. Specially chosen materials with properties the hunger avoids. And how do you know this will work? Xer demanded. We don't, Jin-Ho admitted. That's why we're testing it first. A woman entered the command center. She was carrying a heavy case that she placed on the central table. The samples are ready, she said. Jin-Ho introduced her. This is Choi Hana, our lead engineer. She's designed the test barriers. Hana opened the case, revealing several chunks of dark rock and metal. These samples come from Earth's deepest mines and most active volcanic regions. They contain elements formed under extreme pressure and heat. She held up a piece of black rock streaked with green. This formed under conditions that would kill most Council species instantly. But on Earth, such conditions are common in certain areas. General Xer looked unimpressed. And you expect these rocks to stop something that devours stars? We expect them to resist the hunger long enough to learn more about it, Hana replied calmly. That's step 1. And step 2? Xer asked. Tai-won's face was grim. We take the fight to it. 6 hours later, 3 ships left the Council homeworld. They carried Jin-Ho, Ta-One, Hana, and a team of human volunteers, along with a few brave Council scientists. Their destination was a small moon in the system's outer reaches. They would set up test barriers there, directly in the Hunger's projected path. On the lead ship, Captain Yang Do-hyun checked his crew. Do-hyun had commanded ships in Earth's harshest oceans before moving to space duty. His team included specialists from desert, Arctic, and deep-sea environments, people used to survival in extreme conditions. "Status report," he called. "Barrier materials secure," Hannah reported from the cargo bay. "Ready for deployment. We'll reach the moon in 30 minutes, the pilot said. No sign of the Hunger yet, but long-range sensors showed disturbances at the edge of the system. Do-hyun nodded. "Let's move quickly, people. We won't get a second chance." Jin-Ho joined him on the bridge. "The Council ships are staying back to observe. They're scared." "Can't blame them," Do-hyun said. "They've never seen anything like this." "Neither have we," Jin-Ho reminded him. Do-hyun smiled slightly. "True, but humans are good at facing the unknown. It's what we do." On the surface of the small rocky moon, Hannah directed the placement of the barrier samples. Each chunk of Earth material was carefully positioned in a large circle. "Sensors active," she reported. "We'll be able to measure exactly how the Hunger reacts to each sample." Ta-One supervised the setup of the kinetic weapons, simple projectiles made from Earth materials, loaded into specially designed launchers. "Primitive," scoffed one of the Council scientists observing them. "How can these possibly work when our energy cannons failed?" "Sometimes the old ways are best," Ta-One replied without looking up from his work. Jin-Ho monitored the approach of the Hunger from their base camp. "It's coming faster than projected," he announced over the comm system. "We have less than an hour." Do-hyun ordered everyone back to the ships. "We'll observe from orbit. Only essential personnel stay at the remote stations." Ta-One and 2 other humans volunteered to stay behind to monitor the ground equipment. They set up in a small shelter just outside the barrier circle. As the ships lifted off, Jin-Ho looked down at the moon's surface. The circle of Earth materials looked tiny and insignificant against the vast darkness of space. "This has to work," he whispered. From orbit, they got their first real view of the Hunger. It wasn't a solid object. It was like a hole in reality. A moving darkness that swallowed light and matter. Its edges shifted and pulsed, expanding with each system it consumed. That's impossible," one of the Council scientists gasped. Do-hyun's face was set in a determined expression. "Size estimate. Larger than Earth's moon," the sensor operator reported. "And growing." Jin-Ho studied the readings. "It's changing course, heading directly for the barrier site. It can sense the energy from our equipment," Hannah suggested. "Or it knows we're trying to stop it," Do-hyun said quietly. The comm system crackled. Ta-One's voice came through, tense but controlled. "We have visual contact. The Hunger is approaching the barrier circle." On the main screen, they watched as the darkness reached the edge of their test site. What happened next made everyone gasp. The Hunger stopped. Its edges rippled, as if testing the barrier. Then it began to move around the circle, avoiding the Earth materials completely. "It's working," Jin-Ho shouted. "The barriers are working." But their celebration was short-lived. The Hunger began to change shape, extending a tendril over the barrier. "It's adapting," Hannah said. "Learning." "Fire the kinetic weapons," Do-hyun ordered. On the moon's surface, Ta-One activated the launchers. Projectiles made of Earth materials shot toward the Hunger. When they hit, the Hunger recoiled. Its darkness seemed to shrink slightly where the projectiles struck. "It's damage." Jin-Ho was checking the sensor readings. "The projectiles are disrupting its structure." "But not stopping it," Hannah pointed out. The Hunger was already reforming, though more slowly than before. Ta-One's voice came over the comm again. "It's changing direction, moving away from the barrier." "Where is it going?" Du Hyun asked. There was a pause before Taiwan answered. Toward us. The shelter. It's coming for us. Do Hyun immediately ordered the ship to descend. We're coming to get you. Prepare for emergency pickup. No time. Taiwan replied calmly. But I have an idea. Before anyone could stop him, Taiwan grabbed a container of Earth materials and ran from the shelter, directly toward the hunger. What is he doing? One of the council scientists cried. On the screen, they watched as Taiwan ran to the center of the barrier circle. The hunger followed him, extending tendrils of darkness. He's drawing it in, Jin Ho realized, testing if it will cross the barriers to reach him. Taiwan stood his ground as the hunger approached. Then, at the last moment, he threw the container of Earth materials directly into the darkness. The effect was immediate. The hunger recoiled violently. Its darkness seemed to ripple and tear where the Earth materials touched it. For a moment, it retreated. Taiwan took the opportunity to run back toward the shelter. But the hunger recovered quickly. A tendril of darkness shot out, touching Taiwan's leg as he ran. He fell. Even through the comm system, they could hear his scream of pain. Get him out of there, Du Hyun ordered as their ship raced toward the surface. The other two humans at the shelter ran to Taiwan. They dragged him back inside just as the hunger surged forward again. By the time Du Hyun's ship landed, the hunger had completely surrounded the shelter. But it didn't cross the line of Earth materials Taiwan's team had scattered around the building. Using more Earth materials as cover, Du Hyun's team created a safe path to the ship. They carried Taiwan aboard. His leg blackened where the hunger had touched him. As they lifted off, the hunger followed them, but stopped when they fired more Earth material projectiles at it. We found its weakness, Jin Ho said. But we need more. Much more. On the medical bed, Taiwan was in agony but conscious. It's alive, he gasped. The hunger, it's not just a force. It's alive. I felt it. In my mind. When it touched me. Jin Ho looked at him in shock. What did it want? Taiwan's eyes were filled with pain and wonder. To survive. It's running from something. Something worse. As their ship raced back to the council homeworld, Jin Ho stared out at the stars. They had found a way to fight the hunger. But the battle had only just begun. And somewhere out in the darkness, something was hunting the hunger itself. The council chamber was silent as Jin Ho finished his report. The test mission had proved that Earth materials could hurt the hunger, but the cost had been high. Taiwan lay in the medical center, fighting for his life. So these Earth elements can create barriers, Chancellor Toll said slowly. And your kinetic weapons can damage the hunger. Yes, Jin Ho replied. But we need more, much more, and we need to mass-produce them quickly. General Sir, who had been so dismissive before, now looked thoughtful. Our manufacturing facilities can be converted, but it will take time. Time we don't have, Su Mei pointed out. The hunger is still coming. It will reach major populated systems within days. Dr. Un floated forward. We can establish evacuation routes protected by these Earth material barriers. Save as many as possible. Jin Ho shook his head. Running isn't the answer. The hunger will just keep coming. We need to understand it better. Commander Lee said the hunger communicated with him. Sumai reminded them. He said it's running from something worse. Chancellor Toll's forearms twitched nervously. Something worse than a force that devours stars. What could that possibly be? No one had an answer. Moon Ji-woo arrived at the council homeworld the next day. As Earth's leading expert in non-human psychology, she had been called in to help understand the hunger. She went straight to the medical center to see Taiwan. His leg was gone below the knee, replaced with a council medical pod that was trying to heal the strange damage. Commander Lee, Ji-woo said gently, I need to ask you about your contact with the hunger. Taiwan's eyes were clear despite his pain. It was brief, just a flash. But I felt fear, not hatred. Not hunger. Fear. Fear of what? I don't know. Something coming. Something it can't escape. Taiwan struggled to find words. It's consuming systems to gain energy. To keep running. Jetwu took careful notes. Did you sense any pattern to its movements? Any plan? No. Just survive. Flee. Taiwan closed his eyes. And it was surprised by us. By humans. We were different somehow. When Jetwu left the medical center, Jinho and Sumai were waiting for her. Well, Sumai asked. The hunger isn't our enemy, Jetwu said. Not really. It's a refugee, fleeing something worse. And it's intelligent. Jinho frowned. That doesn't change the fact that it's destroying inhabited systems. No, Jetwu agreed. But it might mean we can communicate with it. Find another solution besides fighting. How do we communicate with something that eats stars? Sumai asked. Jetwu thought for a moment. We need a linguist. Someone who specializes in nonverbal communication. Kang Dongil was teaching at Seoul National University when he got the call. As an expert in nonverbal and non-human communication systems, he had worked with various Earth species, dolphins, elephants, even certain types of plants that responded to stimuli. But nothing had prepared him for this challenge. You want me to talk to a star-eating void entity, he said flatly when Jinho explained the situation. Yes, Jinho replied. It's intelligent. It communicated briefly with one of our people. We need to establish better contact. How am I supposed to do that without being eaten? We have barriers that can protect you. And we've discovered that the hunger avoids our ships now. It's learning. Dongil sighed. This is crazy, but I'll try. The plan was simple but dangerous. 3 ships would approach the hunger, which was currently consuming an uninhabited system near the Council homeworld. Dongil, Jinho, and Jiwoo would attempt to establish communication while staying behind Earth material barriers. Do-hyun commanded the lead ship. All barriers active, he reported. The hunger is holding position at the edge of the system. It's watching us, Jiwoo said, trying to figure out what we're doing. Dongil had set up a complex system of light patterns, sound waves, and simple mathematical sequences. Basic communication first, he explained. Establish that we're both intelligent. Then move to more complex ideas. For hours, they'd broadcast their signals toward the hunger. It made no response, simply hovering at a distance. It's not working, Jinho said finally. We need to try something else. Dongil looked thoughtful. The commander said he felt its thoughts when it touched him. Maybe direct contact is the only way. That's too dangerous, Do-hyun argued. You saw what happened to Taiwan's leg. We could use a smaller sample, Jiwoo suggested. Something controlled. Jinho nodded slowly. A probe, with Earth materials as protection, but with a small opening to allow limited contact. Dongil agreed. Worth a try. They worked quickly to build the probe. A small device with thick Earth material shielding, but with a narrow sensor port that would allow the hunger to make limited contact. I've programmed it with basic communication sequences, Dongil said as they prepared to launch it. And a simple message. We want to talk. The probe moved slowly toward the hunger. Everyone watched the screens tensely as it approached the darkness. The hunger extended a thin tendril toward the probe. It touched the sensor port. Immediately, the probe's systems went wild. Data flooded back to the ships. It's responding, Dongil exclaimed, getting huge amounts of data. Not just simple signals. Complex patterns. Can you understand any of it? Jiwoo asked. Dongil shook his head. It's too alien, but it's definitely communication. It's trying to talk to us. The probe suddenly went dark. The hunger had consumed it. Well, that didn't last long, Do-hyun muttered. But Jinho was looking at the data they had received. Wait, look at this pattern. It's a trajectory. A path. A path to what? Jiwoo asked. Jinho's face paled. I think it's showing us what's chasing it. Back at the Council homeworld, they presented their findings. The data from the probe had revealed something terrifying. A wave of pure entropy, a breakdown of reality itself, moving through the galaxy. The hunger is running from this wave, Jinho explained to the Council. It's consuming energy to stay ahead of it. Can your Earth materials stop this wave? Chancellor Tool asked. We don't know, Jinho admitted, but the hunger is trying to communicate with us because it thinks we might help. General Xer slammed his fist on the table. Help it. After it has destroyed so many worlds, we should use these Earth weapons to destroy it, and then face the wave alone. Jiwoo asked quietly. The hunger knows more about this threat than we do. We need its knowledge. Sumai stepped forward. On Earth, our species has survived 5 mass extinction events. We didn't do it by running. We adapted. We evolved. We stood our ground. What are you suggesting? Chancellor Tool asked. An alliance, Sumai said firmly, with the hunger. The council erupted in outrage. Many members shouted that the idea was insane. Others simply left the chamber in disgust. You can't be serious. Dr. Un's body rippled with anger. Ally with the destroyer of worlds. It's destroying worlds to survive. Jiwoo pointed out, just as you would. Just as any intelligent being would. Dongil nodded. And it's reaching out to us. The probe data shows it wants to communicate. To find another way. Chancellor Tool looked tired. Even if what you say is true, how can we possibly communicate effectively with such an entity? I have an idea, Dongil said, but it's risky. The plan was simple. Dangerous, but simple. Dongil would attempt direct, controlled contact with the hunger, protected by Earth materials, but allowing a small mental connection. This is suicide, Du Hyun said as they prepared the special chamber. We saw what just touching Taiwan's light did. This will be different, Dongil insisted. The chamber will limit contact. And the hunger is expecting us now. It knows we're trying to communicate. Jiwoo checked the neural monitors one last time. We'll pull you out at the first sign of danger. Dongil lay back in the chamber. Thick sheets of Earth material surrounded him, with just a small opening at the top. The ship moved closer to the hunger, which waited at the edge of an empty system. It seemed to be watching them, its darkness swirling slowly. Ready? Jinho asked. Dongil nodded. Open the channel. A thin tendril of darkness extended from the hunger, moving slowly toward the ship. It passed through the special port they had created and touched the opening in Dongil's chamber. Dongil gasped as darkness flickered around his head. His eyes rolled back. The monitors went wild. Pull him out, Du Hyun shouted. Wait. Jiwoo held up her hand. Look at the patterns. It's communication, not attack. For 5 tense minutes, Dongil lay motionless except for occasional twitches. Then the darkness withdrew. Dongil sat up, gasping. I saw it, he whispered. I saw what's coming. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. The wave, it's not just destroying matter. It's erasing existence itself, unmaking reality. Did the hunger tell you how to stop it? Jinho asked urgently. Dongil shook his head. It doesn't know how. That's why it reached out to us. It sensed something in humans, something different. What? Jiwoo asked. Our ability to adapt, to live in hostile environments. Dongil looked at them each in turn. The wave is coming. Fast. The hunger has been staying ahead of it, but it's getting tired, running out of energy. So what do we do? Du Hyun asked. Dongil's voice was steady despite his fear. We stop running. We stand and fight. Together. As they turned their ship back toward the Council homeworld, the hunger followed. Not in pursuit, but in alliance. The destroyer of worlds had become their only hope against an even greater threat. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Leaders from across the galaxy watched as the hunger hovered outside their world, held back only by barriers of Earth materials. "You brought it here," General Xer said, his voice shaking with anger. "You brought the destroyer to our doorstep." "We brought an ally," Sumai corrected him, "one who knows what we're facing." Chancellor Tull raised his arms for silence. "Linguist Kang, please tell the Council what you learned from your contact with the hunger." Donghil stepped forward. The mental connection with the hunger had left him pale and tired, but his voice was strong. "The wave that's coming is a breakdown of reality itself. It erases matter, energy, even space and time. The hunger has been running from it for thousands of years, consuming systems to gain energy to stay ahead. And now?" Dr. asked. "Now it's tired," Donghil said simply. "It can't run forever, and neither can we." Jinho displayed a map of the galaxy. A red line showed the wave's path of destruction. Based on the hunger's data, the wave will reach this system in 3 days. At its current speed, it will consume the entire galaxy within a year. Panic spread through the council chamber. Some members wept. Others shouted demands for ships to flee to other galaxies. "There is nowhere to run," Jiwoo said firmly. "The wave will eventually reach every galaxy, every part of the universe. Then we are doomed," Chancellor Tull said, his blue skin turning gray with despair. "No," Hannah spoke up for the first time. The engineer had been quiet, studying the data from the hunger. "There might be a way to stop it." All eyes turned to her. "On Earth, we have extreme geological processes. Volcanoes, tectonic plate movements, deep sea vents. They create materials with unique properties." Hannah displayed a complex diagram. "I think we can use these properties to create anchor points that stabilize reality against the wave." "Anchor points?" Chancellor Tull asked. "Like stakes in the ground during a storm," Hannah explained. "They would create fixed points that the wave can't erase, places where reality remains stable." Jinho studied her designs. "This could work, but we would need massive amounts of Earth materials and precise placement." "The hunger can help with placement," Donghil added. "It can sense exactly where the wave will hit first." General Xer looked skeptical. "You expect us to trust the very entity that has destroyed countless worlds?" "We trust it, or we all die," Sumai said bluntly. "Those are our options." Chancellor Tull was silent for a long moment. Then he straightened his thin frame. "Begin production of these anchor points immediately. Use every resource we have." For 2 days, the Council worlds worked nonstop. Mining ships stripped Earth of needed materials. Manufacturing centers converted to produce Hannah's anchor devices. The hunger hovered nearby, communicating through Donghil about where to place them. Do-hyun oversaw the fleet of ships that would carry the anchors to their positions. "Each anchor must be manually activated," he explained to his crews. "The wave creates chaotic conditions where automated systems fail." "How many anchors do we need?" asked a council pilot. 12, Jinho replied. 1 primary anchor and 11 support anchors, forming a geometric pattern that will stabilize our local spacetime." "And if it doesn't work?" someone asked. Jinho didn't answer. Everyone knew what failure meant. In the medical center, Taiwan was recovering. The council doctors had given him a new artificial leg. He insisted on joining the mission. "You've done enough," Sumai told him when she visited. Taiwan shook his head. "I felt the hunger's mind. I know what we're facing better than most. I need to be there." Sumai couldn't argue with his determination. It was the same determination that had kept humanity alive on their harsh world for millions of years. On the final day, the fleet gathered near the edge of the system. Jinho had calculated the exact positions for each anchor based on Hannah's designs and the hunger's guidance. Do-hyun addressed the crews one last time. "Each ship has a specific position. Each anchor must be placed exactly as planned. We get one chance at this." He looked at the faces before him, humans and council species working together. The wave will reach us in approximately 6 hours. Once we begin to feel its effects, communications may fail. Stick to the plan. As the ships moved into position, the hunger followed. It had grown smaller in recent days, no longer consuming systems for energy. Through Dongil, it helped guide the ships to the precise coordinates. Jin Ho watched from the command ship as the anchors were deployed. 11 ships placed the support anchors in a large circle. Du Hyun's ship carried the primary anchor to the center. All support anchors in position, Hannah reported. Beginning activation sequence. One by one, the support anchors came online. Each one created a small bubble of stabilized spacetime. Together, they would form a framework for the main anchor. "We're getting strange readings from the outer system," a sensor operator called out. "Reality distortions. The wave is coming." Jin Ho checked his calculations one last time. The primary anchor needs to be activated at exactly the right moment. Too soon, and it won't connect with the support anchors. Too late, and the wave will overtake us. On the main screen, they could see the wave approaching. It wasn't visible in the normal sense. Instead, it was an absence, a place where stars and space simply ceased to exist. 2 minutes to optimal activation time, Jin Ho announced. Du Hyun's voice came over the comm system. "We have a problem. The manual activation switch is damaged. Someone will need to stay with the anchor and activate it directly." "Can it be repaired?" Hannah asked urgently. "No time," Du Hyun replied. "I'll stay and activate it manually." Jin Ho's stomach dropped. That's a suicide mission. Once the wave hits, anyone at the center point will be erased from existence, Du Hyun finished calmly. "I know." Sumai tried to argue, but Du Hyun cut her off. "This is what humans do. We sacrifice for others. We always have." Through their connection with the hunger, they felt its surprise at Du Hyun's willingness to sacrifice himself. Such behavior was unknown in its long experience of the universe. 1 minute to activation, Jin Ho said, his voice tight with emotion. On the screen, they saw Du Hyun's small figure standing by the primary anchor. The rest of his crew had evacuated to a support ship. 30 seconds. The wave was visible now, a distortion approaching the edge of their anchor circle. Where it passed, nothing remained. Not darkness, not empty space. Nothing. 10 seconds. "It has been an honor," Du Hyun said simply. 3, 2, 1. Du Hyun activated the primary anchor. A pulse of energy shot out from it, connecting with each support anchor. A dome of shimmering energy formed over their section of space. The wave hit the dome. For a moment, it seemed to pause. Then it began to flow around the protected area, continuing its path of destruction, but leaving their bubble intact. "It's working," Hannah exclaimed. "The anchors are holding." In the center of the dome, the primary anchor glowed brightly. Of Du Hyun, there was no sign. He had been erased in the moment of activation, his sacrifice creating a stable point in reality that the wave could not touch. Through their connection with the hunger, they felt its awe. In all its existence, it had never seen anything stand against the wave. Never imagined it was possible. "The dome is stable," Jin Ho reported. "And it's growing." The shimmering energy was indeed expanding, pushing back against the wave. The stable reality created by the anchors was not just resisting the wave, but reversing its effects. "The anchor points are creating a cascade effect," Hannah said, studying the readings. "Reversing the entropy, restoring normal spacetime." Slowly, the wave retreated. Where it had erased existence, reality returned. Not exactly as it had been. Stars and planets could not be restored, but empty space replaced the nothingness of non-existence. The hunger's presence in their minds changed. For the first time in millennia, it felt something besides fear, hope. 1 month later, the council gathered again. The wave had been pushed back beyond the galaxy's edge. The anchor points continued to maintain a stable barrier that prevented its return. Chancellor Toole addressed the assembled representatives. Today, we honor those who saved not just our galaxy, but potentially all of existence. He turned to the humans. Sumai, Jin-Ho, Hana, Tadwan, Ji-Woo, and Dong-Il stood together, representing Earth. Your kind was once called Deathworlders, a term of dismissal for those who evolved on a harsh planet. Tull's voice was solemn. Now we understand that it was precisely these conditions that created the strength we needed, the ability to face danger, to sacrifice, to adapt. He raised all four of his arms. The Council has voted unanimously. Earth will now hold a permanent leadership position. Ambassador Kim will serve as the new High Chancellor. Sumai stepped forward, surprised but composed. We accept this honor, but we do not wish to rule, only to share what we have learned through our evolution. That adversity creates strength, that together we can face any challenge. Outside the chamber, a memorial had been built, a simple stone column with Do-hyun's name, and the words, "When the universe despaired, Deathworlders saved the day." The hunger had not left. Through Dong-Il, it communicated that it had detected similar waves in distant galaxies. It wished to help other civilizations survive. Taiwan, standing on his new leg, looked up at the stars. Do-hyun knew the risk. He took it anyway. "That's what humans do," Jin-Ho said quietly. "We face the darkness. We always have." "And now?" Hannah asked. Suma smiled. "Now we teach the rest of the universe how to do the same." Above them, the stars shone brightly in a reality that had almost been erased, saved by the species that had evolved on a world so harsh that other races called it a death world. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes from the harshest beginnings. The universe had learned this lesson, and humanity was ready to share its hard-won wisdom with the stars.